comments, or did you want to just start by talking a bit about the Trans Mountain Pipeline, what you've been doing the last 2 days?
Sure, happy to do so. As many were surprised, I was surprised, but not really shocked by the messaging from Kinder Morgan on the weekend. It's very clear to me that this has escalated to a constitutional and economic crisis for the country, and we got to stop it. This isn't about activism. This is about fundamentally not just the economics of this country, but how this country works and the very nature of federalism. We have a project that has been approved through a rigorous scientific process by the regulatory body in charge of doing that. It has been approved by the federal government, who clearly has the constitutional ability to make that decision. And we cannot allow this country to atomize into a place where the rule of law and constitutional decisions by one order of government are challenged due to political convenience by another order of government. The lawsuits and the court challenges are frivolous, they're vexatious, and I'm calling on Premier Horgan to stand down now and understand that he's no longer an activist on a protest line holding a sign. He's a leader, he's the Premier, and he's part of what makes this country work. And it's important for us to recognize and respect the actual jurisdiction here.
Mayor Nenshi,
La même chose en français?
Même chose en français.
Je vais essayer. Pour moi, c'est très, très important de connaître que nous ne sommes pas dans une situation de jeu maintenant. C'est une situation très sérieuse pour l'avenir constitutionnel de notre pays. Et c'est important pour M. Horgan de connaître qu'il est vraiment maintenant un leader, pas un activiste. Et c'est très, très important pour lui pour dire c'est la décision du gouvernement fédéral, c'est tout.
What do you think the chances are? You spoke a lot about taking this Olympic bid out of the ditch. What do you think the chances are that there are 8 votes now to just call it a day?
Oh, I don't know.
What is your sense, though?
I rarely run my life. Perhaps it's one of my great failings as a politician. I rarely run my life by counting noses on political issues. I usually want the ideas to stand on their own and figure out where they move forward. So council will do what council does. This has always been council's power. And I mean, that's an important point, I think, for us to remember, that, a lot of folks have said, oh, this is a done deal, the mayor's already done it. Let me just be blunt. Give me some credit. I've been in this job for a while. If this were a done deal and I just wanted council to do what I wanted, we would have had this done a long time ago. In fact, we deliberately, from the very beginning, have set up a process that is unbelievably transparent. Sources that look at bids around the world have called it the most transparent, most accessible bid process any city has ever done. And I deliberately put the power into council's hands at every step of the process to make sure they were still comfortable, to check the temperature, to see if they wanted to take off-ramps. And at this point, they've had 1 million off-ramps. There's been unbelievable amounts of briefings. Any council member who says, well, I was blindsided or I didn't know this, well, have they just not been coming to the endless briefings or read the endless reports on this issue? So council's decision is council's decision. They've got all the information they need in order to do that. I will say that I absolutely share the frustration. I share the frustration of last-minute changes by other orders of government. I share the frustration of reports that are not clear enough coming to council in terms of what's being said. So yeah, I think it's fair to say it's a bit in the ditch. And the question is it worth pulling it out of the ditch or not? And I think it is.
But do you think the momentum is moving toward just scrapping it? Or,
like
so you had an 8-6 vote last time, and that was before all this stuff.
Yeah, like I say, that's a political question. And
but what do you think?
And ultimately, politics will decide. And that's every right. And I won't shed any tears one way or the other, depending on what council decides. But I'm really trying to focus on whether we're doing the right thing or not.
What's at risk then if this does die?
A lot of money. There's some reputational risk. There's some other issues like that. I'm not fussed at all about any of that. What I do say, though, is that if we are in a process that's gone on for 2 years that really is about multi-billions of dollars of transfer payments to Alberta, it would seem to me to be a shame to strangle that in the crib when it's, actually that was a mixed metaphor, I was going to say when it's just about to be born. Let me try that again. It would be a shame for me to strangle that as it's being born. If in fact there's no deal there, if in fact there's no funding there, or the City of Calgary would take on enormous financial risk, then if council chooses to move forward with this in June, I'll get out of my chair and say, kill this now. But if there's a deal to be had that Calgarians would like and allows us to, one, maintain 40-year-old facilities and build them where there's no other source of funding to do that, two, build new facilities like a field house where there's no other source of funding to do that, and three, build affordable housing where there's no other source of funding to do that, and it means billions of dollars of Calgarians' taxpayers' money being returned to Calgary from the federal and provincial government, I'm willing to take that to the people.
Mayor, on the provincial, so there were point of privileges, there was point of orders. Today was a messy morning. But
not that messy.
Well,
they've gotten much messier.
I understand, but in a while, it's been messy. So, but in the end, we're just talking about a plebiscite here because clearly, if there's no provincial funding for an Olympics, there's no Olympics.
Correct.
And you need to have a plebiscite to have provincial funding.
Correct.
So, isn't this all just a moot point? Because in the end, it comes down to what's the date for the plebiscite.
Correct.
I mean, so why are we getting in knots here? And if the plebiscite is going to happen in October, you're going to have all the financial, or supposed to have all the financial information in June. So that gives you 3 months to process the information for the public to process the information. Why is this such a huge mess? Like, why are all these outbursts happening? I mean, it seems pretty simple. It's about a plebiscite date.
Would you like to go make my debate close for me? That's about it. I am a little shocked that you asked the question, why is council tying itself in knots on something? Because that's what we do. We do that better than anybody. We're very good at it. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's surprising to me that the folks who previously were calling for a plebiscite are now saying, well, you know, I didn't really want to hear from the public. I was just hoping they would say no. It seems a little dishonest to me. And so if you really want to hear from the public, and by the way, I have heard from a lot of the public say on both sides saying, I just want to say, and I'm convinced by that. The only things I've ever said about a plebiscite is we got to figure out who's paying for it, and the timing has to be right so that the citizens have the information they need to make a decision, but we haven't spent a ton of money, and that's all.
But by this projection, if you have that the cost by June and the vote would theoretically be by October, does that timing works? Does it?
That timing works for me. There's still we are not being asked to develop a final date for the plebiscite here. That would come back in June with the money. And if the plebiscite starts to sneak too much into 2019, then I start to get nervous that we're spending a lot of throwaway money, and I hate spending throwaway money. So, you know, I think that something in the autumn, in the October timeframe makes sense if we can do it logistically.
So just to be clear, the cost of the plebiscite does not come out of the 30 million in the bid?
Yeah.
It's over and above?
The bid budget is 30 million, which doesn't include a plebiscite, so either you'd cut that budget and find the 2 million, or you'd find another source for the 2 million. And I think even the province has said, I mean, this was spun a little funny last week, but I think even the province has said, look, if it's our condition, we'll try to figure out a way to financially contribute to it.
What are your
When
thoughts?
you said this morning that we've done a lousy job on this, what were you referring to?
Well, look, there's been so many dropped balls and missteps and incorrect reports filed. This is very irritating. And certainly I am as frustrated as anybody because there's been a ton of people doing a ton of really good, really thoughtful work, really extraordinary analysis. And when you mess that up by issuing the wrong report on a Friday afternoon, or when you mess that up by throwing in a last-second condition on a plebiscite on something you've agreed to weeks and weeks earlier, I can see why people are frustrated.
Is part of the problem at all that the IOC has overhauled its bid processes while you've been in the bid process to a certain extent?
You know,
This is
one area where I actually don't blame the IOC very much. They've been pretty clear on their timelines and on what they're trying to do, and certainly one of the reasons that I went to Pyeongchang was to kind of look them hairy eyeball to hairy eyeball and understand what they were doing. So, no, I think this is more trying to get four parties, the Canadian Olympic Committee and the three orders of government working. Sometimes it's messy work. The only thing that I really, and I share that frustration, the only area where I disagree with some of what you've heard is people are saying it's rushed. It's not actually that rushed. You know, we've been at it since, does anyone remember? June 2016, was it? When we started this process? So we've had tons of analysis, we've done tons of work on this. And if you say that 2 years to come to a decision is rushed, well, then you've been in government for too long, I think.
Mayor, can you articulate a little bit why you're not wild about the suggestion that all this work could be put forward to the 2030 Olympics?
Oh yeah, sure. And it could be. And certainly if you were in the 26 process and let's say we're unsuccessful, and you wanted to use the same material again in 30, that'd be fine. I think saying stop now, start work on 30 later is challenging because you'll repeat a bunch of the problems you have now. If the IOC uses the same bidding process, it also means that the 2030 bid process would straddle an election, and you'd have a new council trying to deal with stuff and get up to speed. You'd have a very similar situation. And then, far be it for me to comment on international geopolitics, but I will. The United States has said that they're not interested in bidding on 2026, but they may well be interested in bidding on 2030. So suddenly you have a field that is clear from the North American perspective for 26 that would look a lot more crowded in 2030. And I think that's something we got to keep in mind as well.
One last question, folks. One last question.
How will you vote if on Monday it comes forward the off ramp and you're asked to vote again on essentially killing the Olympics or not killing the
I
Olympics?
think I think I've been very clear. It's not a good time to take the off ramp. Give us until June to see the money, and then we can take the off ramp if the money doesn't work.
Can I just this one in French,
Oui.
Mr. Nenshi? Just qu'est-ce qu'on risque avant le dîner?
C'est difficile pour moi maintenant parce que nous sommes dans les derniers stages des négociations avec les gouvernements provinciaux et fédéraux. Et pour moi, c'est important de conclure, de finir ces discussions pendant l'argent ici. Parce que s'il y a peut-être 2 ou 3 milliards de dollars pour Calgary, je veux savoir ça.
Thank you, everyone.